Hi, it's Pam from Ben McFuzzyLugs, here with another March Madness daily tips videos almost every day for the month of March. I say almost every day. I'm going to start with a total apology. Yesterday I started recording my video and the camera battery ran out, so I failed on one day. I'm terribly sorry about that. So today is going to be a bit of a bonus. I'm going to give you kind of two videos in one go. And again, before I get started on the meat of this, I want to kind of just fill in some points from the last video that I had it pointed out when I was talking about the food, giving people food. Of course, I was only talking about healthy supplemental food that you can give your dog. I wasn't talking about just giving them anything. There are foods that are toxic to dogs, and before you start trying to feed your dog just anything, you should be aware of that. I think most people are aware. Grapes, raisins, chocolate, chicken bones, large quantities of onions and garlic can also be toxic. So look into what it's safe to give your dog. As I said, I'm not a nutritionist. Most people on YouTube have no qualifications for what they're talking about, so make sure and research. So speaking of that, what I wanted to talk to you today about was something that came up a bit in the last video as well, and that's the raw food diet for dogs. This is something that, as I said, that I feed my dogs. I have been feeding them for 9 years. And the reason I got into that, actually, I had started believing that kibble was the best thing you can feed your dog, and I found a lovely high quality kibble. I only had my dog Ben at the time, and I was feeding him it, and I felt I was doing such a great job. Now, when he came home with me as a little puppy, he was on tinned food, and I was desperate to get him off that as quickly as possible because I was told it was no good. But to start with, he would run in, and he was so into his food that he would end up doing a little handstand while he ate. It was so adorable. But then over time, when he hit around 6 months, he just seemed to totally go off his food. Now, I followed all the advice that everyone gives you for just putting the food down for 10 minutes and leaving it, and they're all telling you, oh, a dog won't starve and everything. But basically, Ben was perhaps eating 2 days in every week, and even then it wasn't even a full portion of food. He'd just gone off his food, and this went on for about 6 weeks to 2 months. He was barely eating. There was nothing wrong with him, he just didn't want his food. I didn't pander to it or teach him to be fussy by giving him alternatives, but you could clearly see he was losing weight, so I had to do something. Then I attempted putting toppers on his food to encourage his appetite, maybe a little bit of tinned, wet food, some tinned fish, even cheese on top. And basically what would happen, he would pretty much lick off the topper and spit out the kibble. He just did not want to eat kibble. And this was not a battle it was worth continuing with a dog that's actually losing weight. And he's never been a hefty dog at the best of times. So I researched lots of different things, and I thought best to try this raw food diet that people are on about just to see what happens. And basically, he loved it. Basically, he totally loved it. So I looked into it. So I had a dog, again, who was just eating all his meal as soon as I put it down for him. So I thought this was fantastic, but obviously I was concerned if he was getting fully balanced nutrition. So what I did, this was nearly a decade ago, there wasn't the nutrition apps that there are now, but being a bit of a nerd, I found some websites that did give you all the nutritional breakdown of all sorts of foods, including raw meats and everything. So I created massive Excel spreadsheets, put in sample meals for his week, calculated out all the nutrients he was getting, and then compared that to his kibble, which at the time I was feeding him a really good quality kibble. And I was really surprised because in all macronutrients except for carbohydrate and vitamin C, the raw food sample diets that I was making up met or exceeded what he was getting from his kibble. So looking into it more, I discovered that dogs don't actually need vitamin C. Their bodies are capable of processing it, and dogs don't have a dietary need for carbohydrates either. They can switch to fat burning, and they're far more efficient. They're better on that. Obviously, it's a big step. I mean, the food manufacturing companies have pretty much brainwashed us into thinking that it's really difficult to feed dogs, and they have this magical nutritional formula, and if we even add a sardine on top of it, somehow we're unbalancing their food. And if you think about it in terms of human food, you know, if Slim Fast says it's balanced, but no one's going to say it would be unhealthy to eat an apple on top of your Slim Fast shakes or whatever. You know, we cannot create food that is that 100% well balanced, that something healthy is going to knock it all out. So it is more than possible to feed your dogs yourself. You just have to do a little bit of research. And the basis of the raw food diet is just that I'm mainly giving my dogs meat. In a more balanced way as to what a whole prey would be almost. I go by the prey model diet. There are other diets out there, but it's roughly 80% of their diet is meat. 10% of that is offal, you know, the organ meats like liver, kidneys, whatever else you can get hold of. Around 5% of that should be liver, because liver is fantastically nutritious. And the other 10% of the dog's diet is bones. And that includes things like chicken bones. Forever we've been brought up that chicken bones are terrible for dogs, but that's just cooked chicken bones. Cooked chicken bones become quite brittle, and you should never give your dogs them. Some dogs, with anything, some dogs would be okay with it, but there can be problems. But raw bones are actually perfect, and they're really good for cleaning the dog's teeth. Personally, I only tend to go for lighter bones rather than like big weight-bearing bones that you would get from the butcher for the dog. You know, things like, you know, cow legs or something, cow leg bones. Because they can be quite dense, and again, a dog could break a tooth on that. It depends on your dog. Mine are actually quite good gnawers, and they don't tend to try and take big bites out of things, so they're less likely to hurt their teeth on things. But dogs have been known to break their teeth on big heavy bones. So rib bones, poultry bones, although watch turkey bones, they can be quite harsh. But lamb ribs, beef ribs, pork, oxtail can be quite good. And I found this has been a fantastic diet for my dogs for the past, well, it's 9 years now I've been feeding raw. It's a little over 9 years I've been feeding raw. And yeah, I would totally recommend it. It is a good diet. Okay, for the second part of this, seeing as we missed a video last week, just as a thank you for being with me for this month. It's been really crazy trying to do a video every day, and I know I failed once, but I think I've done pretty good, and it's been lovely, those of you who've stayed with me and the new people that have joined. I've had a great time doing this, and so as a little thank you, I wanted to introduce you to my dogs a little bit more. I've mentioned them, but I just wanted a little bit more detail there, so I will stick up some pictures. First we have my Ben boy. He came to me as a rescue from the Dogs Trust. He was actually a wee puppy. His entire litter was in the Dogs Trust. I was told he was 8 weeks old, but with his behaviours and things at the time and the size of him, he was so tiny. His crate for a little while was a cat carrier. He was so titchy. So he was probably a little bit younger than they thought he was. I actually went to the Dogs Trust looking for an older dog to adopt. I didn't really want a puppy, but he chose me, and the rest is history. Ben is where the name for my channel and my Etsy shop and everything comes from. He is Ben McFuzzy Lugs. He's now 10 years old, and I keep looking there because he's looking at me every time I say his name. He's having a look at me. But he's been a fantastic dog. He is my agility superstar. He's a grade 6 in agility and he just loves it. He actually has a really fantastic work ethic and excelled in all the classes I've taken him to. Kind of spoilt me a little. I thought all dogs were this easy to train. And then we have Mia. I actually ended up with her because of her similarity to Ben. Some friends I knew were raising money for a rescue in Ireland, and every month they'd put up a picture of some of the dogs that were in the pound that they were trying to rescue, and her picture came up and everyone was commenting how much like Ben she looked. So I offered to foster her and I failed at fostering, and she's been with me ever since. It's around 8 years I've had her now. She is around about 9 years old. She's fantastically smart, affectionate, great fun with people, but not the biggest fan of other dogs. She can be a little bit reactive, and I've learnt so much working with her over the years. It's obviously not something I would recommend to rush out and get a reactive dog. They are hard work, and I'm not going to lie, when people on forums or anything talk about getting reactive dogs and things or saying they can't cope, I'm not going to judge someone who says they can't cope with a reactive dog, because it is much harder than you imagine, but it's also much more rewarding. And when you look at the bigger picture and you see that how much your dog's improved, and you almost forget how bad it was when now you can go for a walk and just relax and be fairly happy, whereas before you were on edge, always looking out for things. But she is super smart. She puts Ben to shame at the speed that she learns things, and she's so affectionate with other people. Well, I hope you enjoyed meeting my dogs. Okay, thank you so much for being with me, and I'll see you in the next video.